everybody. Today's Monday, April 13th, 2026, and our dear friend, our brother, Larry Johnson is here with us. Welcome back, Larry.
I'm back. I'm glad to see you're styling with the bright shirt today.
Larry, let me start with the latest post of Donald Trump. He's talking about that Iranian Navy has been completely destroyed. Now he's claiming that 158 ships were sunk. And he has mentioned the speedboats, IRGC speedboats. He said that none of them were sunk so far because they pose no threat to the United States, and warning them that they will be destroyed if they approach the U.S. Navy blockade. How do you see this blockade? It's somehow a lot to be said about the difficulties, the complication of what's going on. He was trying to solve the issue. He's just escalating the issue. He's just making it worse. Your understanding of that?
What ships? What U.S. Navy ships are there to blockade? The Abraham Lincoln and his carrier strike group, they're 700 miles out in the Arabian Sea, close to the Indian Ocean. They're not there. That leaves for the destroyers. Apparently, there were two destroyers that tried to enter the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, and they got turned back. But what do they do? Are they gonna? They don't really have the capacity to put boarding teams out in the water, and then grappling up the side of an oil tanker. Navy SEALs are trained to do that, but it's not an easy task. So yeah, it's just this is a words only blockade right now, because Iran still retains control over the strait. It can allow ships to come in and out, and right now many ships, because of the U.S. threat, are refusing to enter or leave. So and all Donald Trump is doing is worsening the global supply chain shortage. He's worsening the oil market, and also just the other the other commodities and goods that flow in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. It's a counterproductive policy. I mean, what's the goal of the policy? To create more economic harm for the global economy. Mission accomplished.
Yeah. He wanted something else. He wanted to resolve by negotiations, but something so strange, Larry, has happened with these negotiations. And today I talked with Professor Morandi. He said more than 12 times J.D. Vance was calling Washington. Once he called even Benjamin Netanyahu, someone in Israel. You are the vice president of the United States, and you're calling Benjamin Netanyahu to get, some sort of guidance from him.
He's Israel's bitch, has to on a short leash. It's embarrassing. It's just excuse me, needed a sip of coffee in order to express my just disgust with J.D. Vance. What Vance, his inexperience was on display. I mean, number one, he is there with his two handlers, Kushner and Witkoff, and I'm sure Professor Morandi talked about them. They were apparently the major obstacles. They were there to make sure that J.D. Vance towed the Israeli line. This wasn't about preserving America's interests. This is about preserving Israel's interests. And then Vance, when they reached an impasse, he foolishly, he was the one to walk out. He said, "Okay, we're done." Yes, breaks off. Just the optics of it, that plays to Iran's benefit, not the U.S. benefit. So it makes him look weak. So this is, it was a fiasco. Yet what's interesting is it looks like the 2-week ceasefire is still holding, including even after Israel tried to sabotage it initially. They've cut back at least on bombing Beirut. Now they're still engaged in heavy combat in southern Lebanon up against Hezbollah, and my understanding is Hezbollah's kicking their ass. which is good because the more Israeli soldiers they kill, the sooner Israel will come to its senses and say, we got to stop this.
Yeah. Here is what Donald Trump, Larry, said on Fox News about the negotiations.
They come back and they give us everything we want. And I told my people, I want everything. I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I told them, I want everything.
I think this was the argument of Donald Trump when he somehow maybe forced J.D. Vance to leave Islamabad to get to the United States, to get back to the United States. I don't know what is happening in his mind that he somehow feels that he can get 95, not 95, 100% everything.
Of what? I mean, what is it? We're not even sure what it is he's trying to achieve. You learn more about what he was saying by just watching the expressions on Maria Bartiromo's face. I mean, she was like, huh? Wasn't, no poker face from her. She wasn't hiding her emotions. Look, Trump is crazy. And I don't say that as an ad hominem attack. I mean, he's genuinely mentally deranged. The things he's saying and doing, there's no consistency at all with his policy. Okay, so it was a week ago, he was like, open the strait, you crazy motherfuckers. Open it. Now this week, it's closed. I thought it was critical for it to be open, but now you've closed it. Okay, now that makes sense. And then he's gone back and forth between, we don't need anything out. Strait of Hormuz, schmooze. We don't care. It doesn't bother us. To Europe, you better help us or else. He's all over the board. So that's why I say we're trying to figure out what is the policy. So right now it's what I call pretend blockade. Well, we got a blockade in place. If the U.S. ships get close enough, or let's put it this way, they're going to stay at least 400 or 500 miles offshore. The farther you get away from land, the more area of ocean you have to cover. It's just like, draw two angles, like this. And as you go out farther, it widens. So the United States doesn't have a mass. They've got basically 7 ships that carry helicopters. Some of them carry, just carry 1 or 2. Others of them, there are 2 vessels, the LDA and LDH, I think it is. They're almost, they look like small aircraft carriers. But you need those helicopters in order to go out and board ships to take control of it. They don't have enough ships, particularly when they're farther out in the ocean, to send guys in small boats to go try to stop a big ship. So it raises the prospect of creating acts of war. If the United States boards a Chinese flagship or a Russian flagship, or even India, Japan, this has a chance to spiral out of control.
Larry, are they going to use the way that you're mentioning 2 sides of the angle, which makes sense because looking at the geography of the region, you see that happening. And they're going to need these speedboats, in my opinion, to do that. And how they're going to counter Iranians with the speedboat, because Iran has the upper hand if it goes in that direction. It's not going to be, they're going to fight each other on, on something. Let's see, let's assume a tanker is going, they're sending speedboats, and Iranians sending them, and they're going to fight. And it's going to be a war. It's going to be escalation. Well, getting back to this, I don't know how the escalation, how could it be as time goes by, and how the United States can monitor everything.
Well, it can't. But again, what is the purpose of this policy? So 4 weeks ago, Trump announced that, in conjunction with Secretary of Treasury Bessent, that all sanctions on Iranian oil were lifted. Why? Well, we got to boost that oil supply out there, baby, and even allow Iranian oil. Okay. So now, at a time when oil prices had started to decline, they increased the threat on Iran, basically trying to shut down Iranian oil. And the oil market responded by saying, okay, basically, go screw yourself. Let's see, the West Texas Intermediate crude, it's now at $112. It was just yesterday or last Friday, it was like 97. So it's gone up significant, at least $11. Brent crude, that's up to, let's see, what is that? 108.9. And those numbers are going to keep going up. So this is going to, oil shock, the increased price of oil, it's going to hit the global economy and contract it. We're going to we are now in a recession. It is just a matter of time to see if we go into depression.
Yeah. Larry, it seems to me keeping this blockade is a heavy sort of mission. And how do you see the Iranian part? It seems that they're so much comfortable with the situation because they know that it's going to be impossible for the United States to control everything there. And they can do a lot to counter the forces. If you've mentioned one of the aircraft carriers in the region, far away from the Iranian coast, but what sort of leverage can they produce in the region together with destroyers? I don't know how many of those destroyers are in the region.
Yeah, no, they don't have that many, but the destroyers really aren't, like with respect to the Abraham Lincoln, those destroyers are there to provide air defense, not to go out and start attacking. They're not going to, they can threaten to shoot missiles at a tanker, but, doing that would both escalate this beyond what it is right now. I don't, the United States just doesn't have enough ships. If the Iranians could adopt a variety of tactics, so if it's an Iranian flag vessel or part of their, what they call their ghost fleet, I could conceive of a situation where you send 4 out together in convoy, and then if they get, a U.S. ship tries to stop them, they just split up. And the U.S. is not going to have enough assets to cover all 4, as an example. And if those 4 come equipped with guys on board, the IRGC on board with man-pans, man-portable air defense systems, that any helicopter approaching the ship would be shot down. Mm. I mean, there's a variety of ways this could go. So we'll see. But it doesn't appear, if they're just trying to block what's out of the Strait of Hormuz, that's one thing. But the Chabahar, it's over there further to the east. They can ship out of there. So, this is not well thought out, and they don't have the assets in place. U.S. Navy does not have the assets in place yet to really enforce an effective blockade.
They have the speedboats a lot, Larry, like drones. And we have these drones coming, supporting the speedboats in that direction. If something goes wrong, they can use missiles. Yeah. I think there is a lot to be said about what would happen if something, some sort of confrontation happens.
Correct. Yeah, Trump keeps insisting we've destroyed their navy. Okay, then why can't you get through the Strait of Hormuz? Well, because Iran can still has capacity to lay mines, and still has drones and missiles that can be fired at any ship. And how do you stop that? you ultimately would have to land troops and go inland about 200 to 300 miles. Well, the U.S. doesn't have enough force to do that. It's not going to do that. It would be a staggering error. You know, the number of U.S. troops that would likely be killed on the Iranian shores would be in the tens of thousands if they tried to do that. Yeah, Trump's just making it up as he goes along, and unfortunately, he is suffering genuinely dementia. He has no filter, says whatever's on his mind. I mean, he's picked a fight now with Pope Leo. That's crazy. Yeah, that's going to rally the Catholics around him. So it's just, Trump needs to be removed from office. Because he's no longer thinking rationally, and he's entirely under the control of Israel.
The guy literally, Larry, I think the people around him, at least those sort of, I don't know how we can call them, priests, pastors around him. They're making him something, feeling that he's the Jesus Christ of the time, and he came just to save everybody, to save the United States and Israel. Basically, he's talking to Israel, I would say.
Yeah,
because whatever he's doing is not helping the United States.
Yeah, well, he is genuinely the Antichrist, and by that I'm not suggesting he's the evil being foretold in biblical prophecy. I'm just saying he's the exact opposite of Jesus. Where Jesus brought healing, Donald Trump brings sickness, disease, death, destruction. And yet, when Trump he put out that image yesterday of him like is this angel healing somebody, with his hand on their forehead. Oh my God! It'd be one thing if he's doing it as a joke, but he really believes this stuff.
Yeah.
And that once you get somebody with those kinds of grandeur, beliefs about themselves, you recognize it's time to, pull the plug. He needs to be put into a nice white coat, tie his hands behind his back, lead him off to a sanatorium.
What's funny, they said that this blockade is going to be on Iranian ports. It's going to be on Iran, not other countries in the region. But it doesn't matter. Iran would apply the same to the other countries, to the ports of other countries.
Right.
It means that everybody, let's assume that they can get this blockade working. And it's not going to be all about Iran. It's going to be all about the region, GCC countries all together. And I see Iran sustaining, because Iran knows how to deal with these sort of problems.
Yeah,
they have been dealing with for such a long time.
Yeah. It's not like this their first round of sanctions.
And they have other, as you've mentioned, other parts of the country to be used, to these sort of import and exports. But the other countries, they don't have that capabilities. Right. The food in those countries would be at risk, in my opinion. The food security is gonna, they're thinking about this. I don't know how much Donald Trump is considering them to be in this calculation, but it seems that he doesn't consider them as a viable, player for him. And how do you see Donald Trump, the way that he sees GCC countries right now?
Well, they're supposed to give him $1 billion each for his board of peace. He's expecting that $450 million airplane from Qatar. They're supposed to line up and wipe his ass or kiss it. He claimed that Mohammed bin Salman was kissing his ass. I'm sure MBS went, oh, that's out of line. No, look, these the two countries that are at greatest risk right now of ceasing to exist are Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. UAE is a particularly fragile society, and I would not be surprised to see its government collapse, and it ultimately be returned to the control of Oman.
because the leadership in UAE, they're not in a better position that, Benjamin Netanyahu, right after the ceasefire being announced by Donald Trump, they said, we won. This is the victory of the UAE.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know, Larry, when you look at the region, do you think that are we going to see, let's assume they attack some tankers from China. What would you assume in that direction if something happens? A Chinese tanker or Chinese, a tanker flagged by China's, sort of flag. How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I don't think that will happen because I think even if Donald Trump doesn't understand it, the admirals and generals in Indo-PACOM, I presume it's an admiral that's in charge out there now. They recognize there's too much risk of this escalating, getting out of control, and they understand as well. Right now, the United States is not equipped at all to get into a fight with China. Our weapons systems are exhausted already. And Indo-PACOM, they probably have the last remaining PAC-3 missiles in the entire U.S. inventory, and they probably have less than 1,000. Which, you say, well, that sounds like a lot, except that 1,000 means they can only try to counter 500 missiles if China fires 500 missiles. Well, China's going to fire 5,000 missiles. So, Indo-PACOM recognizes this is getting into a confrontation with China right now would be the very last thing the U.S. should do.
Where did this sort of understanding came along? It was all about, because when you decide to go to negotiations, you announce some sort of ceasefire and then decide to leave the negotiations, and announce a blockade on Iran. It seems it happened somehow during the negotiations or after the negotiations. It's something new, Larry, because he shared an article in his social media.
Who's he?
Donald Trump.
Oh, Trump. Okay.
In that article, the author of that article was arguing that a blockade on Iran would work. I think that's the whole game. He just found that article and said, "This is the way that I'm going to deal with Iran." Let's call.
Was that article by Mark Thiessen? Do you recall?
I don't know who wrote that article.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they just, it's like those advocating, all we're going to do is take Karg Island. That'll cripple the Iranian oil industry. Okay, again, step back and say, well, what is the purpose with your policy? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to increase the volume of oil that's available on the international market? Or are you trying to reduce the volume? Well, if you reduce the volume, that's going to drive the price up, and that's going to be a big inflationary jolt to the global economy, including the United States. So maybe you want to do the opposite. How do we increase the flow of oil? Well, you don't do that by blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Because, you say, well, we're just targeting Iran. Well, right now, Iran's the only one in that Gulf that's able to produce and ship oil. So, this is a policy that's just, it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Larry, Europe, United Kingdom, together with Australia, they have announced they're not going to help the United States in this blockade. I assume that Donald Trump said nothing to Europeans considering the blockade. He just announced it and he's going to do it alone. And even though, considering that, Europeans are not comfortable with that. How is that going to influence Europe, Larry?
Well, it's going to hurt Europe economically. And that's the thing they've got to be really concerned about. And I was reading one headline with respect to the oil and gas market that it says that the UK airlines only have weeks of jet fuel reserves. And, once those run out, they're going to cut flights. And at the same time, they're going to be raising the price on flights that are still able to fly. So you're getting a double whammy there. You're getting less economic activity and higher costs.
Yeah. I assume India would be the same,
Yeah.
with the case of energy, because they were somehow using this sort of, because the United States has removed the sanctions on Iranian soil, as you've mentioned, in order to reduce the problems with the global economy, with the shortage of energy. And right now they're getting back to the same position. They're not going to receive any Iranian oil. Are they going to receive it from Venezuela? Which is the difference is huge between Iranian oil and Venezuelan oil. They're so thick, and it's difficult to refine them.
Yeah. No, it requires more refining, and that's going to be done in the United States. As we talked about, Singer, who's got the financial interest in the Venezuelan oil, and he owns 3 refineries that deal with that type of heavy oil. So he's doing fine. He'll be making money hand over fist, but there's still a limited volume of oil. I think 800. Is it 8,000 barrels a day, 800,000 barrels a day, something like that. So Venezuela's got minimal, they can produce up to a limit, but they don't have unlimited productive capability.
Antony Blinken yesterday had an interview in which he said that the U.S. offensive capabilities were depleted in 40 days of war on Iran.
Yeah.
And they're somehow critical right now. We know the situation with Israel, with the air defense of Israel. Do you think that if something escalates, it's going to be a full war? It's going to be an attack on Israel? It's going to be an attack on, USS aircraft carrier? Or we're going to see some limited scale confrontations?
Between Iran and Israel?
Between Iran and Israel.
Yeah, well, no, if the war gets restarted, it'll just be a repeat of what we were seeing, with the difference that Iran's going to have, it's already upgrading its air defense system. They've acquired more sophisticated drones. So Iran has made good use of this pause, and it'll be in a much more powerful position to strike back and hurt the U.S. and Israel, more so than they can hurt Iran. They will have, I think, more air defense systems around key power plants and key infrastructure, and be able to defend them pretty well. Yeah, this is, and I guess some of the funds that were supposed to be unfrozen have been unfrozen and are being returned to Iran. I don't know that for a fact. Did Professor Morandi say anything about that today?
No, he didn't mention that. No.
Okay. So,
because as he said, Larry, what he said, that there were some sort of, positive moves happening in the negotiations. But later on, even they agreed to extend the negotiations to the next day, to Sunday. But suddenly at night, J.D. Vance has decided to leave Istanbul.
Mm-hmm.
He left Istanbul, but they had Jared Kushner together with Steve Witkoff. They were there when J.D. Vance,
So Vance left and they stayed behind?
It seems that was the case. And they thought that, the departure of J.D. Vance would put pressure on Iranians to change somehow, to be more flexible, which Iran said, if J.D. Vance is not there, then everything is done and we're not going to do anything else. And then they left, I think similarly, at the same time, they left J.D. Vance and Jared Kushner, they left Pakistan, Islamabad, as the Iranian team left.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole negotiation, look at the Iranian team, Larry. You see 5 committees being there, and political, legal, everything, technical teams, economic, considering to be people who were experts in the economy of Iran and how to deal with the sanction. They had everything there to do something substantial, or to define a framework for negotiations between the two parties. But you see on the part of the United States, what was so surprising for Professor Marandi, he said that J.D. Vance was, every time he was calling someone in Washington, and he's saying they were not prepared. They were there to, I think, to see the tone, the atmosphere of the negotiations without, negotiating in a good faith. That's my understanding of what Professor Marandi said.
Well, yeah, J.D. Vance got put in the position of becoming the scapegoat, and he didn't really have the power to negotiate. He was there as a mouthpiece, having to check back with, Trump and Rubio and God knows who else, just to say, can I do this? Can I not do this? As opposed to going in with a clear understanding of what are we willing to accept and what are we not willing to accept. It shouldn't be complicated. But the U.S. made it overly complicated. And I think Iran entered those negotiations fully expecting it to fail, but they still wanted to leave, at least demonstrate to China and their other allies that, hey, we're trying to find a peaceful way out. We'd prefer that. But, the Americans get a vote on this too, and they're voting no.
And looking at the combination of those people who went to Islamabad, Larry, and these people were so important in terms of decision, the process of decision making in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them were criticizing JCPOA. It shows how serious these people were to, if they had to sign something, they had it all. They didn't call anybody in Iran because they had the full, sort of permission to negotiate. And they knew the framework on the part of the Iranian leader.
Right.
They didn't, as Professor Marandi said, that they didn't need to call anybody in Iran because they knew what they're gonna do. But
yeah.
It's so difficult. It's too difficult to negotiate this way with J.D. Vance or anybody. I would assume Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. It's impossible. And Donald Trump has nobody to do that. Diplomacy is dead in Washington somehow.
Well, you got to have clear positions. So, what is Trump's position on the Strait of Hormuz? Should it be open or should it be blocked? And his answer is yes. You're going, what? So you want it open and you want it blocked? Yes. Does it matter to the United States or does it not matter to the United States? Yes. So you're saying it matters and it doesn't matter? Yes. So, how do you negotiate with that when somebody is literally on from one spectrum to the other? You don't. Which is, another reason why this thing ended the way it did.
I don't know what would be the plan right now and how long can they drag it on, these conditions of uncertainty for the global economy. How do you see Donald Trump dealing with the current situation?
Well,
is it going to be 2 weeks of ceasefire, then getting back? Is it going to be extended, the ceasefire? They're going to extend the ceasefire while having this sort of blockade, at least trying to blockade everything?
A lot of it depends upon pressure from Congress. And I'm sitting there, so I keep looking at the TV to see, what they're saying and doing. We have not reached the critical stage where the majority of Congress are standing up and saying, damn it, get the hell out of Iran. We shouldn't be there. Now, let's see. So we're at day 45. So in 2 weeks, Congress will have to vote whether to continue to allow Trump to do this or not under the War Powers Act. He can do this, create mayhem like this for 60 days. And then after that, he has to have congressional authorization to continue. I think the key variable to focus on in the next 2 weeks is the price of oil and what happens to the U.S. economy. If U.S. economy is starting to crash, and the price of oil stays stuck at triple digit and is increasing, then Trump will be ultimately compelled to change course. He will not be able to continue the policy as is.
Yeah. Here is what was reported, Larry, on the way that Trump is facing some sort of backlash in the United States. Here is what was reported.
Are growing increasingly concerned about the war with Iran and its impact. Our latest CBS News poll finds as the approval of Donald Trump's handling of the conflict has dropped to 36%. Back home, the president's ratings on handling of inflation are at the lowest level of his second term, with only 31% approving.
Yeah, that is what will ultimately bring the change in the policy.
You mean that domestic policy would change Donald Trump? It's not going to be from outside. It's not going to be from Europeans. It's not going to be from GCC countries. That's the reality inside the United States.
Yeah, correct. He's now the GCC, Mohammed bin Salman and MBZ and UAE might have some a little leverage with Trump, but both are going to be in desperate straits, looking to figure out if they want to survive, how do we work with Iran? Because step back and look at it from the GCC standpoint. They align themselves closely with the United States for what purpose? Security. Hey, you're my bodyguard. Well, when your bodyguard is constantly getting his ass kicked, and the people that after they attack him, they start attacking you, you got to step back and say, you're not protecting me against anything. If anything, you're like a fight magnet. You draw people to want to attack me. So this could move to a place that they will, distance themselves from the United States and turn to Iran. I think Saudis are closer to doing that. Qatar has done it already, as has Oman. So I think it's just a matter of time before the rest fall in line: Kuwait, Saudis, and Qataris.
Today there was a phone call between Iran and Saudi Arabia. I think the main topic that was discussed during this call, it was all about the blockade and how Iran would react to Saudi Arabia, to what's going on, what we have. Because right now, as you know, we have the Strait of Hormuz, but Bab al-Mandab is not part of the game right now.
Right.
They're not in right now. And you look at the Strait of Hormuz, Bab al-Mandab, and going up to the Suez Canal, you see a huge game gonna happen if Donald Trump decides to escalate.
Well, I don't know. Look, I think there's a lot of exaggeration about Bab al-Mandab for the simple reason it's been effectively closed since December 23. So
no, the way, not only closing, the way that they can hit Saudi Arabia.
Well, they can hit the Saudi terminal. Yes, I agree with that. But I was talking about just the transit of commercial vessels through the strait. That's been down for quite some time, and particularly no vessels from the EU or from Israel going to or from Israel. Some from the EU, those are under control. Yeah, and so most of the ships, because of the insurance issues, have chosen just to sail. They'll take the longer sail down around the Cape Horn, Cape of of Africa. So it is. I think we can exaggerate somewhat the influence of the Red Sea. Iran struck the pipeline in Saudi Arabia late last week, and I think that pipeline is now down, so it's no longer pumping the oil to the shore to be sent out through the Red Sea.
We had in the news that they fixed it.
Oh, did they fix it? Okay.
Yeah.
It can be blown up again.
Yeah.
Now, right. That's why the ceasefire, as it holds, they may. I could see then in that case closing the strait specifically to shut down any movement of Saudi oil. That would be playing playing it back at the West.
J.D. Vance went to Hungary to help Orban.
How'd that work out? Yeah. But, J.D. Vance, he's getting what I call the Zelensky golden touch. So the boys at the Duran, Alexander Makuras and Alex Cristoforo, I think it was Alex Cristoforo that started calling it getting the Zelensky effect. And the Zelensky effect was if he hugged or shook hands with a politician or hugged him, then like in 6 months they were gone. They were out of office, or they lost an election, or they had some major setback. And we convinced ourselves that, that's what's going on here with J.D. Vance. It's the J.D. Vance effect. Because, you start looking at the record, he met with, early in office, he met with the Pope. And then shortly after, the Pope dies. And then, here it goes. Hey, vote for Orban. And Orban gets smoked, completely wiped out by a coordinated EU effort to take him out. And now the failed negotiations with Iran. Yeah, he needs a win, not getting one.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better for him.
No, that's true.
He's not helping himself. But Larry, we had Benjamin Netanyahu talking about Iran together with Syria, with all the region, and he's talking about he's encircling all of these countries, these forces in the region. It's not just about the president of the United States, Donald Trump, somehow feeling that he's the Jesus, but Benjamin Netanyahu is feeling that he's winning. I don't know where does it come from, but somehow he feels that he can do a lot.
As long as he stays out of prison, that's the key. Staying out of prison.
Yeah, that could be, Larry. I think the situation with Netanyahu in Israel is not going good, but is that going to change Israel? Let's assume they remove Benjamin Netanyahu from power. How is that going to change the policies of Israel, for example, vis-a-vis Lebanon, vis-a-vis Gaza?
Oh, no, it won't. And that's Alistair Crook was on earlier today talking with Judge Napolitano, and he made the point. His wife, Aisling, she reads all the Hebrew press because she reads and speaks Hebrew. And boy, the messages in there it's like 93% of the Israelis want to continue eliminating the Palestinians. So the policies, they may not like Netanyahu for his corruption, but as far as the policies towards the Palestinians and Hezbollah and wiping them out, 93% of the Israelis, yeah, good job, let's do it.
Yeah. Benjamin Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, they were attacking Turkey. They said that
Turkey's next.
What is that, Larry? What is that? Because they said you're weak because Iran attacked you. You couldn't respond to Iran. You have been massacring Kurds. And they really literally want Turkey to fight their war against Iran.
Well, up to this point, Turkey has actually been sort of an ally of Israel, and they've been facilitating Israel's receipt of oil. And this is self-destructive behavior on the part of Israel, going after and alienating Turkey at a time when Turkey is actually trying to disengage itself emotionally from a lot of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Now they're right back in the middle of it, and like if the United States declares war, expands the war with Iran, Turkey's vowed to get in. So it's, like I said, it's a very dangerous situation.
Not only between Israel and Turkey, between the situation with Greece as well is making a lot of noises right now. Because we know the alliance somehow, some sort of alliance between Israel and Greece, the government in Greece and the southern part of Cyprus. Do they really want to escalate the situation because of Israel?
I don't think they want to escalate it so much as Israel may want them to escalate it, and they'll obey the boss, the guy that writes the paycheck. So
in this new map of the region that Benjamin Netanyahu presented, you see Syria is in that red zone of Benjamin Netanyahu.
yeah,
It never, it doesn't matter if you have Bashar Assad in Syria, if you have the head of IHTS, they're gonna. That I think they want all of Syria. They want to go to Damascus. Yeah. That's why they're not getting, and that's a huge escalation for Benjamin Netanyahu against Turkey. This is the problem.
Well, they got to get rid of Lebanon first. Lebanon's if they keep Lebanon intact, Lebanon can completely wipe out anything they would try to do in Syria. And that is quite clear now that the Israelis are suffering an inordinate number of losses compared to what they did in this 6-Day War or Yom Kippur War. It's a long slog, and I bet they'll only be able to continue to keep this up for about 2 weeks, and then they're going to have to pull back, retreat, just like they did in 2006.
If you were to help Donald Trump to make him understand the situation in the Middle East, what would be the way out for the trap that Donald Trump has made for himself in the Middle East?
Well, if they, create a narrative about the negotiation, which does create the exit ramp, and the ultimate part of the narrative is for Trump to say, you know what? Unlike that rotten JCPOA, which limited, and it didn't guarantee that Iran would never build a nuke, I have now negotiated a deal in which Iran will never never build a nuke. And it's like it's an extension of the JCPOA deadline, essentially. But if he can claim that, he doesn't, they don't have to quote, and we're going to abandon our bases in the Gulf states because they're already abandoned, most of them. So you just, don't say anything about them, let them just go away quietly. My understanding is that the frozen sums of money that are at least in Asia and I forget the other spot, but that's now making its way back to Iran. We'll see. So if they've got if they got some of those are the main issues addressed, there very well could be this negotiated settlement, and Trump could declare victory. I've secured the future. There are no more nukes ever, the greatest agreement ever. And essentially, what it would be, he'll just be accepting a modified version of JCPOA.
Larry, before wrapping up, we had the Prime Minister of Canada talking about mostly 70% of their budget, their defense budget, goes to the United States. He said something, 70 cents of a dollar going to the United States, and it means 70% of their defense budget.
Right.
And right now that's gone. They're not going to do it anymore. What are the alternatives for Canada, and how do they see the way that Donald Trump has been treated them or has been dealing with them, and the way that they see their future without, being that much, involved or sending that much, getting that much support from the United States in arm production?
Yeah, well, they're pivoting to China, and the United States instead, Canada was the second largest trading partner. I think Mexico was first, Canada second, and then here's Trump going out of his way to alienate them. That makes no sense. It is counterproductive from a policy standpoint. But I see there is a genuine sentiment in Canada that those Americans are crazy. We got to distance ourselves from them. We can't continue to put up with this. The
Yeah. Larry, can you hear me? Yeah, it seems that we lost Larry. It could be because of the internet connection.
Hello, there, I'm
Yeah,
back.
you're back. You're back. You're back. Yeah.
So this independence movement in Alberta, if they break free, they're like one of the richest provinces in terms of natural resources, and that would be a real blow to Canada. So overall, what we're looking at is, step back, look at the big picture. You're looking at political instability across Europe, Canada, and the United States. I mean, the United States, there's not a unit. There's no unity here. You see the self-destruction of Trump's political base. Trump's doing that, destroying, taking people that were loyal supporters and attacking them, whether, Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, and he wants to pretend that they don't have a social media presence that's more important and more influential than anything you watch on Fox News or MSNBC or CNN. So it's just this instability is in being accompanied by these external stresses that are going to compound those domestic problems. U.S., you're going to face high inflation and low economic growth. The worst of all worlds, stagflation.
I think that's the main reason that right in the middle of this war in the Middle East, you see the Spanish government deciding to reopen its embassy in Iran.
Yeah.
These are signs to Donald Trump.
They read the tea leaves. They can get a better deal with Iran, and Iran is frankly closer to them than geographically than is the United States. So, yeah, this is the U.S. bullying and Trump's threats are contributing to a large growing distaste of foreigners for dealing with the United States. It's just, who needs to be insulted? Just like, the attack on Pope Leo.
Yeah.
I'm not Catholic, but I thought, good God, what is he trying to piss off the entire Catholic Church? And the answer to that is apparently yes. Trump said, oh, yeah, most people get up in the morning with a list and say, what can I do today? What good can I accomplish? How can I make the world better? Donald Trump gets up in the morning and goes, who can I fuck over today? And that kind of self-destruction, it's going to lead to a repudiation of Trump come November.
Larry, here is what he said about Pope.
A very good job. He likes crime, I guess. He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart, and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
Yeah, he's literally making, the comments on the part of Iranians, the Pope, and he's condemning all of them, making some sort of imaginary positions.
When did Trump convert to Catholicism? Well, last I checked, he's not a Catholic.
No.
Last I checked, he's a nothing. He's not affiliated with any particular religious branch except Judaism. He makes the claim that he's more of an observant Jew, as opposed to being a Christian. But by his actions, he's not a Christian. He's a vile, evil bully, and has created really a lot of mayhem and sadness and sorrow around the world. So to launch that kind of gratuitous assault on the Pope, last I checked, the Pope said nothing about Iran getting a nuclear weapon. He has protested the murder of 168 little girls. So here's Trump now finding another voting bloc to piss off that will now vote against him in the future. Way to go, Donald. I mean, the guy is amazing. What a talent.
He said Pope Leo has become Pope because of me, because of Donald Trump.
Hello, check. Hello. Check. Hello. Got it. Hello. Check. Hello. Hello, check.
अरे क्यों चढ़े सारा यार इतने दे यार उतर जाओ सारा स्टेज पे सारा थले उतरो बनावांगा फिर चाहिए
बाबू जी हम इसके ऊपर बैठेगा तार मिसिंग करे ना हल्ला लगो बैठ दे तुम एक बार ओए पीछे जाओ ओए बच्चा बाहर आ जाओ बाहर जाओ चलो 10 बार बाहर जाओ 2 मिनट में कर एक बार बाहर नहीं चलो नशा बार पीछे आ जाओ बैठो चलो उधर जाओ तार मिसिंग करे मेरा लगती बार बार इसको तार मिसिंग हाथ थोड़ी हरकत देखनी है मिस्टेक हुई नहीं एनु मोल्डिंग में फिर मेरा हाथ है ना मोल्डिंग
थोड़ा बेस
थोड़ा ना इसको बेस
उसरी मस्तानिया वो पानिया